I just put in a verse from Revelation, or a couple verses. And, when fast food places are temporarily closed because of shortages, it's a little bit of a weird sign. It's a little odd. The way that I have seen his judgments, like on a nation, the teaching is that it increases, but it's not just like one day where it's like nothing, and then, but it seems to increase first, slowly but surely, troubles. And I don't know exactly what's to come for anyone, like specifically in the world, but it's just a little odd, and I'm just getting like an eerie kind of sense about this confusion and chaos. But spiritually, though, those verses there pasted are always true. Come out of her, my people. Come out of Egypt. Come out of the harlot. Come out of, specifically the harlot, but we don't take part in their plagues. And if we didn't understand this, the spiritual meaning of this, which is always true and has reality, it's saying like a broken record, but then what's implied by anyone in the church world with their understanding of this is that it's not true all this time, but only will be true in the distant future. There is nothing to come out of 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. See, this is the grand lie and delusion, because his word is always true when he gives us the spiritual meaning, which has reality, something that really come out of their heart, which will end up looking like coming out her too, because light can't be joined together with darkness. So then anyone in Messiah had to be called to come out of her. And we can look back in history and see that it's always existed, the anti-Messiah spirit, and what the enemy has done with the harlot, the queen of Babylon, where it's not just one nation for all time. I mean, his word is always true, and things repeat, because our Father is a consistent, never-changing judge. And when people, as a nation, when the sins start piling up, there is actual judgment and destruction and punishment and problems. And it's always true every day for every individual spiritually. There's no one or the other understanding. It's just always true. But we wouldn't want to hide an actual judgment on nations just because something is true spiritually. It doesn't mean that the prophecy is not true, like, period. We just have to get understanding from him, or we'll be just utterly confused, like Babylon. I remember looking back, way back in the beginning at Revelation, not seeing or comprehending anything, and then you try to think, and you try, and that is not lean out on your own understanding. You just increase it day by day and give actual understanding. When we try to understand something, it won't be understood. We'll be in a lie of our own power and self-thinking. It's one of just denying ourselves again and giving up on self. And then we get understanding for doing that. It seems counterproductive if someone's carnal and prideful still about this. But that's the only way. It's not that in reality. The Father just won't allow mankind to raise himself up as God, as the creator himself. In reality, this can't be done. So then blinding judgment, punishment, always true. The harlot's light is not shining right now, and it wasn't 500 years ago. It was snuffed out as a teaching for every believer that's, starting to live the book of Revelation there. Blessed is he who reads and keeps the prophecy. The same for all of us. At some point, to start seeing his judgments and see that that's not what he's talking about, of something way in the distance. That's not the understanding for us right now. It's already to see the spiritual light is like blown out, like a candle's blown out. There's already no light because of his judgments. So he gets John to see in spirit what these judgments mean, spiritual word, spiritual reality. And the carnal man cannot see his judgments at all the way it needs to be seen. Can't. Or perceive what it means that the light is blown out and her light shines no more. Just because that's true, always has been true, doesn't mean that it won't be filled, because at some point, all the sin is going to cause a destruction and a judgment. A little bit of proof for people that think, like, what did he change? The reason why someone would hate this is because he's judging actual wickedness and sin. And someone must still be connected to hate this. So they'll teach a lie and say it's peace and safety. Nothing's going to happen. It's already spiritually happened and happening, the blinding and death. But when they say that, they're talking only carnally. There's no judgment coming. It's going to be all good. It's not. Unless everyone repents at the same time. I read in Revelation, you don't repent. Plagues increase. Spiritually, no one's repenting when the plagues increase, like Pharaoh. And Moses gets to see it. His people see it. That's the point. They see with the spiritual eyes the judgment and the flood that he throws on them for trying to attack his people. It's reality, which is to show his power. In contrast, to give the enemy some power, to show how much power he has, that even over here is virtually nothing compared to his power. If there was no actual spiritual power by the enemy, our Creator's power that wouldn't show his power. But when something that's marveling and wondering after the beast, powerful, and when that's like as if it doesn't even exist, swallows it up, the rod swallows up their rod, that shows his power. And part of the judgment is for those that are enemies. They keep on going after his people and whatever's good because of the enmity with the Creator and our Messiah. That even after actual real plagues in their life, they still run after them. And their end is destruction. Maybe that's why the apostle talks like that. Their end is destruction, spiritually speaking. But even up to their final moment, the utter destruction at the end, with no faith or no hope and no belief, only doing evil. Looks like they're bugging me, and just went to Taco Bell and it's like closed for an order. Shortages, a little here, a little there, and then maybe some increase, People will be eating and drinking as if there is no judgments and plagues because it's always been true. We can already, for those that are being given to see, we know what people are going to do with their heart. It's going to be as if it doesn't even exist, literally, as if it doesn't even exist in their mind and heart. Right up to the judgment, it won't exist, just like Jerusalem. The new covenant already started. The blood was already spilled. People already received the Spirit years before her destruction in 70 AD. That was the Creator's judgment, and specifically Messiah at the right hand being handed over power. Messiah himself being handed over to do what the Father's always done. Utterly wipe out Jerusalem long after the new covenant started. Why are people out there saying he doesn't do this anymore? That nations don't disappear because of their sin. What they're also saying secretly is that he doesn't judge evil. He accepts it and is one with it. Of course, they call evil good and good evil. They won't ever admit it as long as they're doing this. They won't admit any kind of judgment or righteous judgment because of his enemies. You know, we shouldn't expect anything else. And shouldn't try to persuade beyond whatever he tells us to do, admonish once or twice. Learning to just give up and accept what's true, that we can't change what he's determined, you know. And if someone doesn't hear, shake off the dust off your feet, take the peace back, and keep going. Messiah gives them things. He says, go out. And they come back. Were you lacking anything? No. They said they didn't lack anything. No excuse to sell his word, buying and selling in the heart. We have to buy his truth from above, from heaven, and not sell it like Proverbs says. But the wicked have buying and selling in their heart carnally, with the love for riches and things like this. And they think that truth can be bought and sold and exchanged, just like merchandise in the temple. In the person, the table is flipped over. It's not allowed. It's only allowed in a punishing judgment and delusion. All right, I got another order. Looks like a replacement for. Okay. I guess there'll be a short one then. Her spirit, this country's spirit, and just not saying as if it's not true anywhere else, is exactly what I read because it's always true. She sits as a prideful god in her own mind, a queen, the queen of Babylon and the abominations of the earth, where there is no nation that has more church buildings and harlots and abominable abominations, specifically claiming to be his people. And she spread all these things throughout all the earth and fornicated spiritually with the kings of the earth. And she will be judged and destroyed, literally. But she's already destroyed spiritually. Her time is coming. They say there is no judgment, like they always do. Always. And that she sits as a widow. No one can touch her. And we could read she's got a prideful spirit, a prideful mind, sitting as a queen. Statue of Liberty, the Queen of Babylon, the greatest nation in this world of all the earth, meaning she's the worst. She is the Queen of Babylon, spiritually speaking. And it's always true, but she's doing what the Father says in his prophecy that nations always do when they get like this. She's spreading all the church world abominations, fornicating with the world, the kings of the earth. And now this leaven has spread almost utterly to completion. Church buildings are around every corner of the world. That is the harlot. That is the synagogue of Satan, like Messiah says, where Satan dwells. I don't believe it. I'm not understanding it. How could they call the house of God where Messiah, where our Father ultimately says in his word? That's where Satan dwells. Not me, not the Creator. All right, I probably need to go. But death, mourning, famine, destruction, disease. Well, these things will literally increase. But it'll be as if it's not even happening. It'll never acknowledge the Creator's judgments are before the world, as it always was. And when a nation's destroyed, it doesn't mean it wasn't sinful all that time. It's just that this is his patience and long suffering. It waxes worse and worse because everyone waxes worse and worse within. And then the nation itself waxes worse and worse unto its destruction and flood with the Red Sea. Harlot's not being persecuted for his name's sake. It's being judged and destroyed. It's already begun. And nobody's rapturing out of the sea, out of the world. Everyone's going to be here right up until the final destruction and wrath of our Creator. Tribulation and judgments increasing. Has nothing to do with his wrath on a nation. Nothing. As Messiah said, you will have tribulation. Oh, it's real. For what? Every believer. Not for some last generation and now this tribulation's coming true. The disciples went through the tribulation. The apostle did. John did, in prison, suffering by the devils throwing him there. And whatever else someone is spiritually battling. This is the tribulation of Jacob. It's the whole age is a giant Jacob's trouble and tribulation. But it's, as a whole, the worst for the end, because that's when light shines. When his people shine is in the midst of utter darkness and destruction. That's when she shines the most. It has to be that way. So we can expect to see, as I fully am convinced, more, and they'll probably try to keep this hush-hush to some degree. More church buildings all around the world being destroyed, even with fire, and shut down. We're all going to be here right till the seventh trumpet sounds, which is the wrath. That's when his people are protected from Sodom and Gomorrah's utter final destruction in one day. But it's going to be like a baby being born in the mother, where it's growing. The tribulation is growing in the world as a whole. Up until Israel's birth, the resurrection of the dead, which is the world's destruction right at the same time. As Noah is a nice picture and perfect from our Creator, using real people actually to teach a parable to. Noah is right there while the wrath hits. Now this thing increased. It increased and increased. Nobody's listening, nobody's hearing. And then the flood came suddenly. That's the wrath and final judgment. That's when his people are protected, and not a moment sooner promised to be protected from tribulation in this world. Each one, the Father will do according to what he will do with each one. There is no set stone thing. Some might make it longer, some not. We don't know. Each one has to seek for themselves. Maybe some are taken before really bad things happen, because in Isaiah or somewhere in Scripture, it says man does not consider. He doesn't consider, it doesn't come to mind that the righteous, that this has happened before and can happen, are taken by the Creator so that they don't see death. They're taken peacefully. As we read, all these died apart from receiving that true final promise, including Enoch. He died, just included. The apostle sees what it means, but we got simple letters to see that he actually died. They're not understanding what it means. He was taken. He was taken mercifully so he didn't see death. I don't know how many he does that with, but it's a teaching, and it's happened, and it could happen. Moses is an example. Maybe not so much to see things, but like the Creator took Moses's life while his eye was not dim. He was still strong right up to the end. Strong in the Spirit is the teaching. Strong walking with him. But Moses literally alive and strong, because there was no spiritual reality. So then that's the picture, naturally. Strong right up until the end, increasing. And then the Father, that's why we read that the death of his saints is precious in the sight of Yah, in the sight of the Father. Psalm somewhere, the death of the saints, the death of his saints is precious in his sight. Sounds evil, sounds cruel, right, to the carnal man, because they don't know what's to come, and they didn't understand that just might have been mercy, to have a soft, smooth, quick death, so that they don't experience what the world's going to experience, And I'm not saying that's going to happen to everyone. I'm just saying the teaching in reality exists, that he's done this. Enoch died apart from receiving the promise. These all died. I'm just saying that as a teaching, it exists. that can happen. And mankind doesn't consider it. That would be abomination to this world because they love their soul. They don't want to die and love this world. So the truth being taken like that, if it were to happen, is nation, or it's the saints' actual blessing. That if that happened, that would be actually a good thing. That requires real faith and really knowing the Creator and understanding all these things for it not to be an abomination. Because a lion never wants to die, literally. So then spiritually, that's the teaching, man. He doesn't want to give up his soul. This country will not go unpunished. And maybe he's allowed it to stand for as long as it did, just so that it can have a greater surprise judgment because of the severe wickedness, giving them a delusion that it's going to stand forever. And if something happens, we got the troops to take care of it. We got the troops to take care of it. We're the greatest. Love not the world or all the things in it, because it's always wicked. Every thought, every deed, every work, selfish and wicked, extremely prideful. She sits as a widow. No one can touch me, she, the harlot. That's why it's a she. It's not to say other nations aren't in sin. But look at her, the Statue of Liberty, a she, a symbol of Queen of Babylon. And maybe, just maybe, those towers falling is a sign. It's a symbol. It symbolizes her destruction to come soon. When the towers fall, we could read that. Maybe that's always been a sign. When great buildings fall suddenly, it's a warning that her judgment is near. Her final destruction is near. Maybe it's within that generation. The late 90s, 2000, 40 years is a generation scripturally. Definitely by 2040. I'm not saying anything definite like that. I'm just, this is where I'm being led. This is what I'm being led to see. That the sign of the times demand some severe judgments to come because of the wickedness and sin. Cry, and delusion is severe in this country. Those that are wicked don't see Sodom and Gomorrah and wickedness. I mean, it's really bad. And technology has only made it the worst that it ever was. The internet has only made it ever was, waxing worse and worse. Till the last days, it'll be such, right? But then it's always true for the whole entire age is like the last days, because it's seen as inviting people for wedding. So for anyone in Messiah, it doesn't matter what time it is, it's the last days for them. And Jacob's tribulation is seen spiritually as a whole. From that forward, the tribulation of Jacob, spiritual Israel. That's his people's tribulation. Spiritually within. But this doesn't undo, like what we read, actual judgments, literal judgments when a nation is getting close to its end. There's disease and famine and tribulation is increasing, literally. Could someone take that away as if it doesn't exist? What did he do to his own Jerusalem? I mean, that's such a powerful thing if someone can see it, that the Father himself judged Jerusalem. How much more will he judge the nations? But Jerusalem now, because of the real coming in, the Father's Spirit, was a type. It spiritually is Sodom and Gomorrah in Egypt. In Revelation we read, she's spiritually, Jerusalem is spiritually Sodom and Egypt, with the wicked heart, desperately wicked, no better, no different than the pagan nations. That's why she's judged as if it's pagan, because it was for real. And a greater nation, like we can read in Exodus, amazing things, or somewhere in there, the first 5 books there is prophecy. that the Father says, I will destroy this. And Moses pleads for the people, and the Father has patience on this, showing his patience. But he was saying, look, I will make a greater, a mightier nation than you. See? Spiritual Israel is that greater, mightier nation because of the Father's works in righteousness, that he will not destroy before him, because they are his work. The kingdom will never be destroyed. It was true when Messiah was resurrected and the Spirit was poured out. It's been true for her ever since. And it's going to continue to be true until this kingdom does fulfill prophecy, which is all the families of the earth will be blessed, which is a time of peace and reward for his people, where the nation is born all at once. He's given it to me very clear that whatever the final judgment is on the earth, that's when his people are protected specifically. Not any moment sooner, right up to the seventh trumpet within our life, and for the actual end of this tribulation for this world and his people. Is the picture of a woman being pregnant is a perfect picture of what it's like for everyone that ever lived in Messiah. But it's also the perfect picture for this world as a whole. And he doesn't change. We read it's going to be Sodom and Gomorrah as an example of those that continue to live ungodly like this. Jerusalem, old Jerusalem, that happened to her. She was destroyed. That was that wrath, the type, an example, and the people escaped. Messiah's people, not one perished. This actual wrath, but up to that point, there was tribulation, and there is no promise for each individual automatically that they'll make it, literally, because in this life we will have tribulation. Maybe, maybe not. For some, maybe, and many not. How it's always been. Whatever he does with each individual could be slightly different from another. Look at John's end. It's a picture. He's in prison, man. He's suffering. That's like the spiritual picture of Messiah's people have to go through. So it's like the other understanding is not nearly. It's not unless that's seen and being lived and important. But it's not to take away. If he judges Jerusalem, his people, and destroys it like this because of its severe sin, because something greater has come and they didn't repent. Long after, years after Messiah and the Spirit being poured out and the new covenant already in reality, he still did that. And of course, from that point till now, nations have disappeared, but they want to hide that in this world. They want to screw the history and twist it. They'll never admit that it's because of his judgments that they disappear. They would remain if it wasn't waxing worse and worse. But spiritually, the reason why Jerusalem is destroyed like this is because the real came and the Father's works in righteousness has come. And she's called spiritually Sodom and Gomorrah. Spiritually meaning with the heart, completely no different than any unbeliever or pagan nations in the heart. They can read that. This is not the people of God, as in our Creator in this country, known as this. It's such a strong delusion. It's the same spirit of old Jerusalem. He's going to do to the harlot in the greatest country in the world, which is the worst to the Creator, the Queen of Babylon. A judgment as if it's the pagan nations, because if it's spiritually wicked, that is the only real thing, wickedness in the heart. And the harlot's light will shine no more, literally. When that happens at the end, it's finally over. The beastly kingdom's in the harlot. Okay, I got to make an order.
What can I get for you today?
Okay, I think I'm going to end it here. Oh my, it's a little bit difficult in the middle of doing all this too. This has been my increase. Up in the air right when that wrath hits, and maybe all of the saints that have ever lived will see the Father's powerful judgment, final judgment and destruction. Just like Noah was right in the midst of it and saw it, but first the natural, then the spiritual and the heavenly and the powerful, or he's lifted up literally above the earth while the earth is being judged and destroyed with water and baptized. And then he comes back down to teaching. It lines up with every other teaching. For just a second here. All right. So Noah goes up. This is that wrath. This is the sudden flood. This is different than any kind of tribulation within or from without. Uh, while it's happening, Noah is above. People caught up in the air. Maybe that the apostles literally speak this, because there is a right abiding. Not every single thing that people will teach so that they do away with actual truth. That's what their goal is when they do this. Messiah will never come. His people will never be resurrected or caught up and protected from this wrath. How could that be our focus when we should know that's only at the very end? That if we were here 500 years ago, we know we wouldn't have lived till the end, literally. But we should have lived to the end of our own tribulation. See? So that's not the valuable thing, but I'm sharing this anyway now because we can't know about it when he gives us about it. No, I'm not going through here. They got cameras on this light. So Noah is lifted up. The earth is 100% judged. And he comes back down, and it's the new heavens and earth. But something was wrong. That's the natural first. It already happened. That's how everything was fulfilled, all of it. prophecy was fulfilled, and yet it's not, because it's happening again. And the powerful, the spiritual, the real thing, not a type anymore of Messiah's coming, not a type of this final judgment, but the actual judgment and resurrection is coming. So people will teach and confuse the resurrection is already happening, not understanding that it's a type, first the natural, and that all prophecy was fulfilled, and yet it wasn't. Just like any other type. Moses, a type of Messiah. Messiah was already fulfilled, and yet he wasn't, because the real Messiah was born and lived. And Moses didn't, that wasn't the real thing, but a teaching and a type of the true, the final, the second thing. And so it is for this giant nation and the resurrection of the dead. That was a little type of it. We could read in Matthew, it says some came out of their graves, literally resurrected. How come people don't want to believe this? Messiah himself was literally resurrected. There's a real resurrection, but the only one that's important is knowing the Father now, spiritual resurrection, to be alive in him now, to be made alive from our death. There is a resurrection. That was a type of it. Look, I'm showing you a little bit of promise here, this amazing thing. See, a few of them came out of their graves. Messiah was risen, Lazarus was risen, literally. But that wasn't the real thing yet. It's to come. And I mean, we're in some crazy times. I'm being more and more convinced in spirit. It's the last generation. I think I can start saying that. But I just want to be careful and not make this stupid, evil thing that people do out here in this world. I got to deliver this thing. Okay. Let's see. Let's go. The kingdom already came, and it's coming. Came as a type, as a reality for his people. The kingdom came in that the Spirit was poured out as a down payment and a promise of the things to come. A real thing. Carnal people have no understanding of this, because it takes to have his Spirit to understand what the is in Revelation. That all things that were is true now. And things that is right now are a type and down payment of the things that are to come. This is, and he's only been adding to this, always supporting. If something's true, all of the scripture will support it. And so this is where the understanding is on, to really perceive this, that all things were fulfilled, and yet they need to be fulfilled again. That is the understanding. Instead of being risen in a boat, protected, sheltered, see, the picture is true. Only a few left at the very end. That's a teaching also. Very few in this world. I don't know how many, but not many. And so then they're lifted up, protected from this final wrath, judgment, and destruction, which is a destruction all over the earth. To burned up, and there be few men left, and then the kingdom of heaven. Luther says he comes through Messiah. That's the teaching that always was. It's the Father coming because through the man Messiah, a real human being that was glorified as a example for us. He comes like that. That's how, because they're one. His people should be one with him, Messiah. He yearns for Zion, Zechariah 8. Zealous for her. He will put his people there, just like he put Adam there. How come they can't believe in this miracle? And the kingdom of heaven is growing constantly until all the families of the earth are blessed. It's a promise for Abraham, which is a promise for anyone in Messiah, grafted into Jerusalem, spiritual Jerusalem, into the covenant, which has everything to do with keeping his laws and commandments and his ways in our heart. Because when Messiah says, I never knew you, even though someone could do great works, even literally heal people, possibly, where power was given to give them a delusion, just like the Egyptians were given some power, showing this literal power because it's the spiritual power and seduction it's teaching. Given power to make them think they're God and actually are true because they have some kind of power to persuade, deceive, and even heal or whatever they think, and in their mind healing. That's given so that they think and believe in a lie. The power is given to the magicians so that they can believe in a lie that they're actually magicians and have power of themselves, and think outside of the Creator, outside of the Father, giving all power and things. They're given a delusion for a lie to believe. Amazing, astonishing. It gets real confusing in this world when these things aren't seen. When they're starting to be seen, though, he'll show you all the deceptions, because we need to see them, because the elect are always tempted and tested to be sifted as wheat. And they'll get close. They'll be tricked here and there, and the Father brings them back. And they'll know it's because of the Father's works that they weren't utterly taken down and never came back up, fell and never rose up again. If things really start getting ugly, it's not my choice or call, but it seems to me I wouldn't mind it just be taken, But who knows whether this would happen for any individual. Messiah prays that his kingdom come, his will be done. Wow, so much traffic around here. So many people relying on the system, A little bit of shortage is a little bit of problem, and it's going to be a mad place. It's going to be an insane place to be, Each one has to trust in the Creator to have them be wherever they are and need to be. It seems to me it's like get out somewhere where it's gray, red light, 2 seconds for green light, or it's not crazy and chaos with people everywhere. I don't know. There's something about Daniel too with numbers, numbering the days. Of course, there's a spiritual meaning to this, and those that aren't perceiving it, it's just worthless if they don't have the Father. Not seeing in their mind the reality of living it and what it means to number our days. It's part of like submission, doing his will. It's not the actual valuable meaning is not literally numbering literal days, although there is nothing wrong with that, but it's leading to the higher things. So when we do that, when the two are one and we do everything for the right understanding and reason, then it's good. And that's what the meaning is. Well, someone keeping his days, people call it feast keepers. There's nothing wrong with that, but there is something very wrong with not understanding anything spiritual, not having the Father and Messiah in them. And then they literally do this because to see that they're better than others and prideful and self-righteous for doing that and others not doing it. That's the reason it's done. And it's all carnal, literally talking about feast keeping as the meaning that makes someone righteous. When it's done with what its intended meaning was, with the heart being thankful and feasting, hearing from the Father, eating good words, truth, doctrine from him. That's the true feast with the heart. Then it's good when these two things are one and done like this, with the heart and understanding. That's why the apostle said he by all means must keep such and such without malice and wickedness. He knows that the many are carnal and that they're not thinking or seeing anything about the heart, just seeing literal feast. You know, the kingdom of heaven is not eating and drinking, but peace and righteousness. So when it's done the right way with the heart, that's the only time it means anything or is valuable. And if not, it's to be an enemy straight up. If it's not perceived or understood or done for the wrong reasons. Not murdering people doesn't make us righteous. You know, literally not murder. You can't. Let me close this out here. So then what is the meaning and value and purpose that we should be doing? With our heart, not murdering people. And then it's good that we don't murder people. Otherwise, that law means nothing unless it leads to Messiah teaching us the law. Many, man, I can't imagine how many. I never knew you. Workers of lawlessness. Talking about the heart only, because all these laws and commandments mean zero. We were lawless with our heart our whole life and never changed. But that's the carnal man for you. And you would think it's simple to see and understand this. They do see something in a moment, that there's something very wrong, but they resist it, and the Father blinds them, and the word is taken from them. And then we watch them do what they do anyways, continuing to do and teach what they do through pride and self-righteousness. We have to watch his amazing judgments and the death and destruction of the wicked, the harlot. They'll do what they do anyways because of his strong judgments. Otherwise, they would let the people go. Pharaoh would let the people go. No, he's hardened as a punishment, and then Pharaoh hardens his heart. And he doesn't let the people go, and it's how it gets waxes worse and worse to show the Creator's judgments that you can't mess with him. Can't mess with his way and truth and him and mock him. So then what happens to someone that's carnal, that truth and resisting, and they're being shown contradictions and seeing that they exist? Their heart gets harder. Otherwise, they would have done what's right. They should have, but they don't. Father judges them and hardens their heart, and so they harden their heart. Both are true. And they act as if the word is not even given to them at all. It's as if it doesn't even exist. Anyone who's an enemy does this. All of them. Without partiality. All of a sudden, the child comes out of the person, and people in this world who think they're great kings and mighty, and all of a sudden they act like a child before the Father and his people and Messiah and his people. And we have to see that. All of a sudden, Wizard of Oz comes out of them. Just a trick, wizard. Just someone needing to be worshipped because they don't have the Father, and controlling people and sounding mighty. But it's just a weak little man behind the curtain. The image of the beast is Wizard of Oz. You know, it's like the devil's like throwing it right in everyone's face, and still can't perceive it or do what's right anyways, apart from the Father. But there it is. That's a perfect picture, Wizard of Oz. That's what that's what the Father's word teaches. Wolves in sheep clothing. Hungry wolves everywhere in a circle, and then there's a sheep in the middle. And the wolves tell the sheep, you got to smile more. You got to smile more. Why don't you smile more? Stupid wolves. Blind. Saying that with evil intentions, trickery, and wanting you to do evil and be evil and throw you down and throw everything that's good and true down. That's why they say that. They're trying to put destruction on you so that they can see and say you're destruction, which means that none of this could be true. They're talking about themselves, caught in their own deceit. They're in destruction, and that's why they do that. And those that are not can't be doing that, and we don't do that. Try to expose and like find and put something that's a lie on someone and find destruction in them so that we can throw truth down. That's what Messiah's people do? No, they don't. They don't do that with their heart. The Father's works. They can't be doing that. Those who are doing that is evidence, knowing them by their works that they're not the Father's people. Can't be doing that. And when they do it, they don't repent. It just continues. Never acknowledge that they did any such evil. Not the Father's works. No one can mock him. His works never do that, so his people can't do that. This world will do anything. People will do anything to protect their image, Wizard of Oz, to lie, to do anything. They'll accept anything. They'll accept openly acknowledging Satan as their God, if that's what's required to save their soul. Father's people and Messiah's people do that. So maybe, just maybe, the devil, an anti-Messiah spirit, who's against the true Messiah. This is the Jesus Christ God, the anti-Messiah spirit. It's another spirit, not another flesh. Just might be trying to weed him out and do things that only the world can do and only his people can't do. And that's how the devil will find everyone. That's how he'll find everyone, because they won't be able to lie. First of all, that's wicked. And it's wicked and insecure and unrighteous to lie, to like save yourself, see? So, but anyone else will quickly do that if that's what's required to save their image and save their soul. To go out of tribulation, they'll do anything. To save their soul, they'll do anything. Give them a double portion. The time is near that the harlot is being destroyed before our eyes. Does the church world perceive this? No. And if it says anything about it, it's saying we're being persecuted, which is proof that their rapture thing is a lie, because when they say no tribulation, they mean no tribulation, spiritually or physically. And then this thing starts happening at the church world. Of course, if it happens everywhere except their building, it's so blind and prideful and selfish. So if it happens everywhere except their building, we are told that we're raptured, even though everywhere else in this world it's like happening. But because it doesn't happen to their building just yet, literal tribulation, that their lie is true, Father's going to prove their lie is false, all of them. That it's a lie, because tribulation to the wicked is wickedness. Then they're going to lie and say it's tribulation for his name's sake. You people said none of this would happen to you because you're raptured from literal any kind of pain or tribulation. That's their understanding of that, not wrath, not final judgment. But the most important thing, spiritual tribulation, of which everyone's already in Gehenna fire and destruction and blind. They don't even see that. So when they say raptured from tribulation, the carnal man is only talking about getting slapped in the face and poked with a knife and threatened with food and, famine, these literal tribulation. They say that wasn't happening. How come it's happening right now all over the world to church buildings? So just because it hasn't happened yet like that in the United States to one building, that's Messiah rapturing them from tribulation, but it's happening to all the others. Pretty blind. I'm saying it's coming here too. Yes, it's coming here to the Queen of Babylon, the United States. United, right? United in death, divisions. It's so blind, there's nothing united about it in reality. Nothing. It's united in death and loving the God of this world, his ways and his works from the heart. Forget words. It worships the God of this world and marvels after and wonders after the beast, spiritual spell and breaking of witchcraft, and idols and other Elohims before them. Images in their heart and in their mind in the temple, which is blasphemy. inside the temple in Daniel. It calls itself the God of God. And so these temples are destroyed spiritually. Destruction. It cannot be that someone's actually doing that and mocks the Creator. So when this happens, it's a destruction, a judgment, and a blinding. If that's what's happening, then all those judgments are happening too. It's blind utterly. It's not allowed to do that. It's not accepted by the Father to continue in sin. So blinding, it's blinded, punished, to reveal his powerful, mighty judgments. Great and strong is Yah. His mighty judgments we can read. Strong is Yahuwah who judges her. Always been true. The sin is so bad that the church world's image is being broken, where they're getting like gays now, and it's getting like free for all, not even look at anymore, partying, coming naked in there. You know, it's getting real. It's already over and divided. It's always been judged. It's always been in destruction. But her image is slipping. And that is what holiness is to them. So now she's frantic, saying we're the true one. All these are falling away. It's got a different definition of falling away. It's got a different understanding for everything. Someone that accepts gays, that's falling away from the faith right now. We're the true, we don't fall away. And all of them are falling away in the heart, for real, in reality, and don't have the Father. So they got a different meaning for falling away. Carnal, natural, outward. You know, that can't be us. It can't be us. It has to be sincere, not falling away from the heart. So it's tormenting, just like seeing these things, that they're true. Like, put us in a position where we can't just go and save the world. Boom, save. You know, it's like we have to watch all this blinding destruction and everything, and yet it shows who he is and his power. Amazing, and also in another way, it's not good, because it's people blinding destruction. So it's nasty what the enemy does. So if a church building gets persecuted, tribulation, that's proof that they weren't raptured. How come they're not seeing that? If it comes, then they'll have to switch it up and say, well, okay, now tribulation for his name's sake. No, it's not. It's actually judgment, punishment. Her light's going to shine no more, literally. Not that it ever was. That's the teaching. It's like a mockery. But I mean, this has to be moved out of the way for the kingdom of heaven now. The beast and the harlot, it's going to be a judgment. And they're going to continue to say it doesn't exist as long as it's not in their church building, that they're going to be raptured. Tribulation is abomination to the darkness, as I found to be true. And then it's the opposite for his people. That's all they're supposed to be knowing, and it's increasing. They have to accept the real tribulation, spiritual war. It's a tribulation to be in war like this. Someone that's not in spiritual war, there's no spiritual tribulation or reality to it. So they talk about literal tribulation is not going to happen. When Messiah says, when his life says, the works speak louder than words, that his life was a tribulation for believing in the Father. The disciples, all examples of getting worse and worse at the end of their life, tougher and tougher. The world runs from this for his name's sake. And there's things happening around the world out there, probably more than whatever we can see now, but you can look and hear about it a little bit. How come they weren't raptured? How come people in the United States still hold on to this doctrine when the church world somewhere else is getting some physical tribulation and things shut down, burned up, whatever's happening out there that's reality? I guess it's always going to be true until it happens to them, right? That's some serious confusion. At the end, the beast, this world never loved the harlot, and the harlot never loves the world for real. It's always been true. But at the end, it's manifested that the beast actually attacks the harlot, eats her flesh, destruction, and burns her with fire, consumes. You know, that this world doesn't love them. It's actually the Father put it in their mind to give them one spirit, one mind, to complete a judgment on the harlot. We read that literally in Revelation like that. This has to be manifested one day. That's the prophecy. It's always been true, though, spiritually. But it's going to start. The world's going to start attacking the harlot. I mean, the division's going to be proven. The fact that there was no real love is going to be proven between the two. A harlot gets bucked off the beast after a little bit and stabs her. You know, this is going to look like something in this world. It's going to look like she's getting punished and judged, shut down, burned up, destroyed. And that's someone's whole cover. That's their image. If that's being attacked, it's like their whole life is gone. They have no other hope or real belief. So like always just a constant torment and cover. But when that cover starts getting exposed, that is who and what they were. There was no real faith or confidence anywhere. And then the fear is severe of death, you know, everyone, but they act and pretend and lie. This is why we read that Messiah, the Father and Messiah in us, can get us to overcome the fear of death itself. You could read it. Overcoming the fear of death. That when someone says that they don't fear any kind of death, they're liars. You're supposed to be overcoming the spiritual and even literally. But there is a cowardly fear for dying to who and what they are. That's the real thing that the world has. They're afraid to die to who and what they are. They're afraid of death. And therefore, if it was tested, it would literally be afraid of death, you know. So we gotta keep going, you know. If there's some weakness, it's gotta be increased so that there's not. But it's not looking so good, you know. The news, we can't trust the news and just blindly believe. It kind of stinks because, you know, it's always gonna be lying and mixing things up. But if we dig a little, seek truth from our Father, you know, we should be able to, He'll give us what we need to see. What's going on now is like, there's a little more chaos, problems in this world than people are perceiving and owning up to, is what I'm saying. But that's the spirit of pride and blinding, you know, so. I think I got another order. Let me see. Yes, I do. Spirit of pride and blinding. Harlot. It's going to be a destruction. It's going to be a scary world. It's always a scary world. But his people are told not to be in fear. No fear. We know that has to be increased and perfected. Don't fear. Messiah overcame the world. He already went through this tribulation. The attack of enemies, the despising, the excluding, reviled. He's the example of all these blessings he's talking about that must happen for his people. Blessed is you when evil comes your way. That's the only blessing. If the world shows good to us, it's a curse because we're not his people then, if that continues. Blessed is he who doesn't see and believes. No blessing for those that waiting for proof to see and believe, like doubting Thomas. That's the teaching. No blessing. No blessing for those that don't read and keep the prophecies of this book. No blessings for those that are not being reviled, hated, excluded on purpose with wicked hearts, murderous hearts. No blessing. Curse instead. The world cannot love his people, and it has to be lived for real. All right, I'm going to take off here. Trust in the Creator to get us through. Zionist to get us through this crazy world. Every day, just enough bread to get through the day. This day, our daily bread, enough spiritual food to get us through the day. That's the high tea. That's the true meaning. And yeah, if it's his will, just enough food to get through the day, just survive. But that's carnal. To seek that is to not know the other and hate it. You'll either love the one or despise the other. It's not talking about physical bread, although we have a promise will give us what we need. But there is no promise that won't go through. That's so stupid. Of course, the Messiah's people's whole life is a tribulation. But there's no promise that even we won't go through it physically. It'll be according to his will. At the right time, and it's the right time. We get in a sticky situation, well, we believe in him that he'll get us through to the end. He gets us out of it. But eventually there's some kind of end. Eventually the apostle doesn't escape. And he knows it in his spirit and his heart. But all the other times, he made it through, the Father got him through till the end. Then he'd say he ran the race. He ran the race spiritually with mind and heart, following Messiah wherever he goes. The carnal man cannot say that with any belief or confidence or truth. All right, peace, take care, seek truth from above.